I don't know if you know, I was talking to some people before the meeting, and a lot of people don't know who United Power is or who I am. Well, I am the new business director at United Power. We're an electric co-op that serves kind of the North Denver, Brighton, Erie, kind of up that I-25 corridor. And we got a picture here, but well, let's just go to it then. Oops. We serve about 90,000 meters. To put that in perspective, I don't know, Xcel serves something like 1.5 million electric meters, so we're a mini version of what Xcel Energy without the natural gas. We have about a 500 megawatt summer peak. Again, I mentioned the general area that we have. We also have a little mountain service territory that's up, if you know where the Rocky Flats is off of Highway 93 and the wind testing site up there. We serve the mountains directly west of that. So we've got a little bit of a mountain territory. We've been blessed. We've got double-digit growth in kilowatt-hour sales. That is mainly due to a lot of the oil and gas that's come into our service territory. They're putting in these large compressor stations. I might make one mention. My history is that I started my career at Xcel Energy, so I understand the Xcel Energy model and how they work. I also worked at Intermountain REA. I worked at Platte River Power Authority, which is kind of the G&T serving the Fort Collins, Loveland, Longmont, and Estes Park areas. Also worked in the unregulated natural gas business where a third-party marketer can actually sell natural gas to schools and hospitals in like the Xcel service territory. And Xcel uses their pipes, but we actually put the gas into the system. So I'm very familiar with a lot of different aspects of the energy business, especially here in this local area. When we get an oil and gas load, I mean, literally, they call up and they say, we want to build a compressor plant for 60 megawatts. And I don't know if that registers with you guys. That's big. When I was at Xcel Energy, I mean, if a 10 megawatter walked in, we called it key account. And that was Xcel. And we're just a little electric co-op. So walking in the door with a 60 megawatt load is pretty much incredible for us. So we've got great growth. And you've seen, like most co-ops are pretty, 60, 70% residential and then maybe 30% commercial and industrial. That's typical. And that's how we were probably 5 years ago. But you can see now that we've got a kind of a third and a third, a third. And some of our projects are basically to manage our growth and to save our members money. The difference between us and Xcel, we are not regulated by the PUC. We do have an elected board of directors. So the membership, our owners, elects the board, and they are our regulatory body. If they want to change rates, if they want to change rate structures, if they want to do a battery project, they just say yes. That's it. We don't have to go to the PUC for any of that kind of stuff. I'm also a little bit about being a chief bragging officer for the company. But if you look on this part of it, because we're really pretty proud of this, back in 2009, United Power was the first community solar in the state of Colorado. We actually got a grant from then the governor's energy office when Bill Ritter was running it as governor. And we came up with the idea of community solar. And we got it built and operating in 2009. And in 2010, the Colorado legislators thought it was such a good idea that they mandated that the IOUs in the state had to have a community solar program. And many of the co-ops throughout the state have adopted community solar, and actually community solar is nationwide right now. It's a pretty good concept. Some other little fun facts off this sheet. Back in, and I'm just saying this because I really am proud of it. Back in 2000 and 2010 or 2011, we turned on a landfill methane plant. And if you guys have been following, you know, that is not unusual to have a landfill generator. What's unusual is one of them working in Colorado. Because of the low humidity, it just doesn't biodegrade that fast. And I can tell you, when I was at Excel, they had a number of projects that just utterly failed. United Power had a couple that failed. We got one to work, and I'm proud to say that thing's a 3-megawatt baseload plant that runs at 90% at peak capacity. So its plant factor, it's running peak at 90% of the time. That is incredible. And just to put a little jab in, because I know the town, is anybody here from the town of Erie? The funny thing for them, you know, they're kind of the mini Boulder. That's where Boulder's trash goes. But the renewable electricity serves the town of Erie. So thank you, Boulder. We also did a 2-megawatt solar field, which in today's news, that's like a weekend project. But it was actually a big deal back in 2012. It was the largest solar system connected directly at the distribution voltage, not transmission, but distribution. And the thing that was neat about that was the rule of thumb back then, when I would go to conferences and stuff, they said, you can't put more than 30% generation to load on a distribution failure. It'd be too disruptive to the voltage and the homes in that general area. That was the rule of thumb. We decided with that project to put it on a feeder. It was going to be 50% generation to load. No problems, none. And connecting to distribution is really, really easy. So it gave us the courage, and there's a few more projects. There's a 16 megawatt, there's a 13 megawatt, and there's a 7.5 megawatt, all connected to the distribution system. And today they're operating at a 90% generation to load. And we worked with the solar developer to actually throttle the solar. So if our load, like on a 13 megawatt solar field, if for some reason our load would go down to 12, because we could never backfeed onto the transmission system, we would have to drop the entire 13 megawatts of solar until the load came back. Well, that's disruptive, and that's a big waste of energy. We worked with the solar developer, and they'll actually throttle their solar down when our load drops below that 13 megawatts. There's about a megawatt buffer in there, and then when the load comes back, the solar is allowed to go back up. And we don't have any penalties on that. You might say, well, they're losing sales if they're getting throttled like that. And I said, well, yeah, they are. But I also told them this. I said, if you want 100% plug and play with no throttling, I'm going to let you build an 8 megawatt system out there. If you want to put this throttling control where maybe for a few hours or a few days per year you're throttling your production, I'll let you go to 13 megawatts. It's up to you. They decided to go with the 13 megawatts with no penalties on that. But I thought that was pretty innovative at the end of the day too, to have that kind of throttling mechanism so we could put more solar on the system without backfeeding on the transmission at any time. And then of course, while we're here tonight, we turned a 4 megawatt, 4-hour Tesla lithium-ion battery on in December of last year. We had a little grand opening over there that day. If any of you want to see it, it's going to be about this. It's 9586 I-25 frontage road. It's basically where the I-25 and Longmont exit, the frontage road on the east side. It's about a mile going back south on that, from that intersection, and it's behind the United Power. We've got a new building over there that we're using for operations that we're still working on. But if you go back there, just drive around to the back and you can see the whole thing. So I'm pretty proud of all the stuff. And the other thing you're going to find out about co-ops is we are absolutely transparent. I'm going to give you all the stories. I'm going to give you all the warts. I'm going to give you all the successes. It's going to bring some issues to the forefront. If you guys got questions, just blurt them out, because I'd love to have a conversation. I think of you guys as kind of thought leaders. I've been at CRES before. I used to go to a lot of meetings back in the old days. And I've been to this building and was on a panel with Tom Plant one time. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago. So I know about you guys, and I think you guys have some innovative ideas, and you think about things in slightly different ways, and I'd love to hear your opinions about some of this stuff too. But we started studying batteries back in 2015. Batteries were too expensive. Nobody was doing them, unless you had to, like Hawaii or something like that. We kept working this thing. We had a benchmark. Our business case is the battery is used as a peak shaving device on our wholesale power bill. And what that means is when we as a utility are having a peak demand, I turn that battery on. It gives me 4 megawatts, and I get about $20 or $20,000 per megawatt for that month for everything. So I can save my membership, my customers, $80,000 a month in demand costs by operating this battery. Now, what's kind of interesting, let's go into that business case a little bit more. If some of you have done home batteries, people usually do them for outages. If they don't have an outage, then the battery doesn't get used very much. And batteries actually do need to be exercised a little bit. They do need to be used. But then you hear the stories about some people that are using batteries multiple times per day for short bursts, for maybe voltage or frequency fluctuations or something like that. That's a little bit on the overuse side. The way we're using our battery is pretty simple. When we're having a peak day, I turn it on and I let it go down to 0. So for 4 hours, I leave that battery on. And we did a study, because each month has a slightly different load profile, just to give you, in the summer, it's pretty easy. Real hot day, you got your nice little peak. Your spring and fall are a little weird. It's like every day is exactly the same. It's a flat line until everybody comes home from work. And if it's a cold day, the bump's a little higher. If it's not so cold, it's not so high. So we had to actually do a study, but we felt that we could capture the peak demand in a 4-hour window each and every month of the year. So that 80,000 multiplied by 12 months is close to $1 million a year. That's our business case. And what's nice about this is that we don't have to operate the battery every day. Like today, I'm sure we did not have a peak demand day, so we don't have to operate it. In fact, if you looked at our study, we only have to operate that battery maybe 3 to 5 times per month to capture that peak demand. This is perfect for operation of a battery. You're exercising it, but you're not over-exercising it. And when you turn it on, you leave it on until it's drained. Now let's go into a little, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands here because it's kind of interesting, but is a battery a generator? Is a battery a generator? You could make one argument that it doesn't make a new electron of anything. It takes an electron made by something else, solar, wind, coal, whatever, holds it, and releases it at a different time. That doesn't sound like a generator. But if you look at the actual graph on the SCADA system that we have that shows the real-time load, the graph looks exactly like a generator. And you say, well, yeah, but that's not that big a deal. Well, this gentleman here, pump storage. That's another weird one. That you would say is obviously a generator, but it acts a lot like a battery, really. And so why I bring this up is this is a hot issue today is a battery a generator? Some people say yes, some people say no. We said it was not a generator. And so we felt that we wanted the full value of the capacity component of our wholesale power rate. Our justification was that utilities have been incenting, promoting, load shifting, and peak shaving for years. What is a time of day rate? It's nothing more than trying to get you to move on peak load to off peak. What's an irrigation rate to have you shift? What's me controlling air conditioners in the summer? It's peak shaving. Or hot water tanks, peak shaving. All these things utilities, and including my wholesale provider, Tri-State, have been incenting and promoting for years. So we felt, okay, well, we're bringing a peak shaving strategy to the table. We want, just like all these other strategies, we wanted 100%. If we can capture that peak, we want the full value of that. Our wholesale supplier, when we signed this battery project back in 2017, my wholesale supplier had no policy whatsoever on batteries, no opinion whatsoever. They recognized they were out there, but they didn't want to say one thing or another. And surprisingly enough, they let me make a presentation in front of the Tri-State board about this issue, and I brought up a couple points. I said, number one, we've all been to battery projects or conferences. We've all read the articles. We've all read the studies. I said the difference today is when I'm talking to you about batteries is we have a real project. There's going to be a real battery out there, and you have to do something really. And that was true. You know, it's funny how you have to think a little bit differently when you got something on the table for real. And we put a battery project in 2017 on the table for real. I also told them this. I don't know if they like this one or not. I said, and I'm talking to their board of directors. I said, here's the deal. I'm giving them the deal. I said, here's the deal. We'll pay for 100% of this battery. United Power will take 100% of the risk that we can peak shave, because that's not guaranteed either. We'll take one. If we can't do it, we don't get the value. And we will take 100% of the risk on the technology. I could end up with a dead battery in 2 years. We'll take all of those risks, all those costs, and what I'm asking you, Tri-State, to do is nothing. I want you to do absolutely nothing. That was the deal. They didn't like it. They came back with a policy that they said batteries are generators. We're going to treat them like a generator. And they shaved about half of the cost or the value. So instead of saving $80,000 a month, I'm now saving $40,000 a month. We're still disputing that. So we peak shaved in December, January, February, March. That's 4 months. We've been short paying them. They keep billing us. We keep short paying them. There's a train wreck coming here pretty soon. And I'll tell you what that train wreck is. Tri-State hired a new CEO. And his first day at work is April 5th. And so I think this will probably be one of the early discussions between United Power and Tri-State. So I told you I was going to give you all the warts on this thing. I'm sure Excel wouldn't tell you all the inside scoop, but I will. Let's see what we're looking here. So our contractor was SoCore Energy, who then was bought out by NG Energy, which is kind of a large international energy. We already talked about the lithium-ion Tesla and its location. This one's kind of interesting. You see the output warranty from manufacturer? This was critical. This was the key. When we first started talking to people back in 2015, we said this: here's the line we need. You either tell me yes, you can do it, or no, you can't. We had an early technology say they could do it, EOS. And so we were going down the path with EOS. And we lined out how much we would pay for a certain amount of output. When we talked about, they're just an R&D bunch, they didn't have any public projects at the time. When we talked to them about warranty, they said, oh, don't worry about it, we'll just oversize it a little bit and call it good. Well, that's not really a warranty. And what we found out later was, when we got down to the final ready to pull the trigger, guess what EOS came back and told us? You know, we took it out of the lab and started to produce it, you know, regular. It's only at 50% output. Yeah. Yeah, a little oversized, wasn't going to cut that one. But the point here is, when you go with a new technology, warranty is a big issue. And they can't give you a warranty. They don't even know what their product can do. Now, their brochure says everything, and they can convince you of it, but they really don't know what they got. And if you think back at the solar industry, when those panels first started coming out, they didn't have warranties on them either. It was only after they got a comfort level of years under their belt that they started to layer some sort of warranty on it. Well, Tesla, they're battle tested. They've got it in the cars. They built a big battery factory in Nevada. They are battle tested. They were willing to come to the table with a warranty that said, I will guarantee 100% output at the end of 10 years. You might want to write that one or remember that one, because that blew me away. Because this battery thing is not about making energy, it's about offsetting capacity. Output is the whole game. If I got a 4 megawatt battery offsetting capacity and I get my full capacity rate and $80,000, but if that battery's only got an output of 2 megawatts, that's all I get. So that warranty was monster for us. It really was. And honestly, Tesla was the only one that was willing to actually put a real warranty on the table. And as I look out at other technologies, and I'm sure there's some here that probably know this stuff better than I do, most of them really don't know what they got. It's all lab tested. They think they got something, but it's never been really field tested for any length of time. And they will be very reluctant to put a true warranty on the table. They'll put the, I'll oversize it, or I'll promise to change it out if it ever goes bad. You know, I was asking my company to spend $7 million. It was a little over $7 million for this 4 megawatt battery. And I don't know about you guys, but I used to buy those green rechargeable AA batteries. Have you ever done those? You do it about 3 times and you go, what the hell? I can't even run my radio for a half an hour after a while. Oh, I chucked them. They weren't worth it to me. And that was those things. I can't spend this kind of money and have a battery that's at 50% in a couple of years. I mean, that's just not going to work. And so I think that is a monster deal, is the warranty aspects of these batteries. It's just now starting to develop, and Tesla's one of the first ones. Now, I should mention, we've been talking, yeah.
Quick question on that. So let's say in a few years we see that it's reduced to like 50%. Then does the output warranty cover like a new battery and the installation and any savings that you lost during any time you were not recouping the whole 100% output, or how does it work?
Well, the way it works, and the way Tesla set this up, because I was interested in how they were going to do this too, they did oversize it a little bit up front.
Okay.
But they actually built into the cost that they're probably going to change out some banks maybe year 7 or 8 to get it back up to full. Now, I did have to pay a small premium for that warranty, just like I would at Best Buy for different things, service agreements. So I did pay a little bit of a premium for that, but you know, the ability to go to bed at night was a lot for me. So, so what we got is, yeah.
How concerned were you with round trip efficiency of these batteries? What do you expect to see on them?
Well, because this is not an energy maker, it's a capacity offsetter, I really didn't care. This one's about at I believe it's like 86 round trip on it and stuff. Because the energy is kind of minor to the whole cost flow here. So we didn't really consider it. Now, we did make a conscious decision to tie this to the grid. You know, it's popular to combine the solar with the batteries today. We purposely wanted to tie this to the grid because we knew this fight about whether a battery as a generator was going to come up. And we wanted to be able to stand right in front of our wholesale supplier, Tri-State, and say, because of this battery, you sell us more kilowatt hours than we put back on the grid. And that's a fact. So how could that be a generator? That was our argument. But we wanted to be able to say that, so we purposely did not connect it to a solar. In the future, if we do more projects, we would probably consider some. But we wanted to completely separate any generation from this battery because we knew that was going to be a argument. And it still is. And if you follow the State House, they are arguing this stuff right now about what's a battery? What do you call it? What kind of resource is it? And so it's a very lively thing. So the bottom line is we expected to save $1 million a year, peak shaving. The simple payback was 7 to 8 years. I had an output warranty of 10 years, and it was 80% at the end of 15 years. So I felt really good that we had a 15-year asset to work with. And I don't know, maybe more. Because remember, how I'm operating this battery is I'm not overusing it. I'm only using it less than 100 times per year. And when I do use it on a day, I use it once. And it goes from 100% down to 0. So I think that's the best and minimal amount you could use the battery. So we're hoping maybe we have a longer asset than 15 years. But we think we have at least a 15-year asset. Yeah.
Yeah, is that a 7 to 8 year payback pretty standard in the utility space? And were there any subsidies involved in installing it?
It's really all about the wholesale demand rate. Ours is about $20 a kW. That's our wholesale demand rate. If you go around the nation, different G&Ts, Excel, different people have different demand rates. So that's what would change that payback number a little bit. And what was your second question?
I was wondering if there were any incentives from the state or local incentives?
No, we, in fact, we didn't even, you know, if you do the solar plus storage, you get the 30% today on both. We didn't even get that. So there was absolutely no incentives whatsoever. We really feel that this battery is a testing ground for us. Just like all of our solar projects that we did, instead of doing studies and reading brochures and articles and stuff, we went out and did it. And we found out what really goes on. Well, we want to do the exact same thing with this battery. We want to find out what really goes on. What happens on a cold day? What happens on a hot day? Everything. How fast does it charge? What is the true round trip efficiencies of these things? We wanted to get our hands dirty. It's going to get paid back by peak shaving, but some alternatives here is as the politicians start ramping up, we're going to go 100% renewables and all this other stuff. Well, until Americans stop watching television at night, we've got to find a way to take some of that electricity that was made during the day, store it, hold it, and release it at another time. I mean, that's just a fact. And so we feel that our experience that we're going to gain off of this battery is going to make us better in the future. And a perfect example, I think we've all heard about Hawaii, where they're just saturated with renewables, the entire system. Well, we're not saturated system-wide, but we do have feeder lines, individual feeder lines that have an all-solar subdivision attached to it. And that feeder line looks like a 3-megawatt generator during the day coming towards the substation, and it looks like a 4-megawatt load going out to the homes that night. So that feeder is saturated. And so sticking a battery at the end of that feeder might be perfectly appropriate to incorporate more renewables on a feeder line. That's what we're going to learn. This first project's not set up like that, but as we get experience operating this thing, that's one thing that we could do with it. Another one, and I'd love to talk about it if we have time about this, is this EV thing. I mean, everybody's talking electric vehicles and utilities should be supporting it, and it's a great opportunity. Yeah, that's all true. But what nobody talks about is the demand component of these EVs. A level 3 charger is a 60 kW load. And if it's a standalone charger, you just added on demand component only $1,000 to your utility bill. How many cars are you planning on charging? How can you manage that demand? And if you've got a filling station where you've got 4 or 5 of these level 3 chargers, or how about, this blows me away. I was just at a conference where they were talking about doing buses and trucks. Well, instead of loading up, 60 kilowatt hours in a car, they're loading up 500 kilowatt hours in a bus. They are talking about 2 megawatts of charging just to do this stuff. Well, we've got to manage that demand or else this will never work. And just a quick story, because if you're old enough to remember compressed natural gas vehicles when those were maybe hot for a little bit, I was working at Xcel Energy. They really wanted to promote natural gas cars, and they changed a portion of their fleet over. They were showing everybody how cool it was. Unfortunately, there was no infrastructure for filling these cars up. So at Public Service then had to let people go in their service yards because that's where a filling station was. Well, that didn't work out because now you're allowing the public in the backyard of their service centers. That didn't work. So if you remember the old Vickers convenience stores, there's like Come and Go today. There was about 20 of them throughout the metro. They came up and said, you know what? We're going to put in a natural gas compressor at every one of our convenience stores so someone can fill up their car. Oh my God. Overnight, they solved the infrastructure problem. Except for 6 months later, I get this phone call. It's from the home office in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And an accountant wants to know why their utility bill, which was $1,000 a month every single month. Think of those convenience stores. They got lighting and a little refrigeration, and that's it. It was $1,000 each and every month. They put those compressors in, and it went up to $1,500. And they didn't know why. Well, we told them why. And the accountant said, I mean, she was just blunt to me. She just said, we don't sell enough pop to justify it. That was it. So all those front-end people that were so helpful and was going to save the planet and stuff, when it got to the home office accounting department, those guys hadn't got clued in on it. All they saw was their utility bill went up to $1,500 a month, and they didn't sell enough pop to cover it. They yanked every one of those compressor stations out. Infrastructure gone. You know, I'm afraid that in this EV world, if we don't deal with this demand issue in an appropriate way, whether it's putting a little battery by the charger or coming up with special utility rates or something, what we're going to do is we're going to incent Come and Go to put these electric chargers at every one of their convenience stores. They're going to figure out that their utility bill went up and they're not offsetting it with sales of anything. And they'll yank those things out, just like that. And we would have been doing ourselves a disservice and spending a lot of money putting in an infrastructure that's not maintainable. So I tell that story because I think batteries could be a play towards helping EV chargers also. So, do you have a question?
Both the compressed gas and the electric, isn't that cost of power for the compressors or power built into the rate charged to the person taking the energy off the grid? I mean, if the person taking the compressed gas, aren't they being charged? Couldn't the rate that they're paying for the compressed gas include?
Well, this is my next pet peeve. When those EV charging grants a few years ago, you actually got bonus points if you said you'd put in a charger and gave the product away for free. We as a utility wanted to put one a quarter of a mile from a come and go that already has a level 3 and a level 2 charger. If I put in a charger for free to charge, everybody comes over to my place and charges. Nobody goes to come and go. And they yank those things out of the come and go faster than they normally would. And I'm saying, I'm not the place they should be charging. They should be charging at the come and go. That's where they buy their gas. That's where they're going to get a pop. That's where they're going to order a pizza. That's where they need to be charging, not at the United Power headquarters building where there's absolutely nothing to do. And I could kill the come and go model by just offering free electricity. So this whole pricing of electric vehicles is critical to me too.
You get some from Volkswagen and Electrify America?
Yeah, they got special corridors that they will give money to, and we're trying to get some of that.
And in the story on your natural gas, doesn't that say something about fuel cells?
Perhaps. Maybe we'll get into a broader conversation. There are so many interesting, hot energy topics on the table right now, and I'm sure you guys have opinions. I have opinions on all of them too. But a couple things in summary here. Just, we believe the electric industry has moved. A lot of this new stuff is happening at the distribution level. We connected our battery at the distribution level. Those wall packs that Tesla sells at the distribution residential level. The small solar, the utility solar that we've all at the distribution level. The smart metering that we're seeing out there. United Power has completed, we've got 100% penetration of smart meters. And last year, we actually allowed our consumers to go in on the internet and look at their data, and they can see their energy usage on a 15-minute basis every single day. If you really want to do something about your energy conservation and efficiency, you can't wait for the bill to show up a month later. You have no idea what you did. And we can show our consumers it's not real time, it's next day time. So they could today see yesterday's data. But if you really want to know how you're using energy, and it helps as a utility person, it has helped me immensely. Some guy wants to know why his bill went up, and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, you got a 4 kW load coming on at 2 o'clock in the morning. What's it about? Oh, nothing. We're not doing anything different. Well, then your neighbor is stealing a hell of a lot of energy from you. Well, we got a hot tub, but, that doesn't use any energy. Well, it does. No, you guys laugh. That's a real conversation right there. All I could do in the past was I had his usage for 30 days. If they told me I did nothing different, that's where I had to start. But with that 15-minute data, I can start from someplace else. And that's a good thing for both of us. But if you're serious about lowering your energy bills, you need to have that kind of data. And so United Power is offering that to its members right now. And that's pretty cool. And just to brag a little further, Xcel's just started to put the smart meters in their service territory right now. So they're heading in the same direction. Yeah.
So I know Xcel does where they'll give you a discount on a smart meter, but then they get some control over your peak load if they need to turn on your thermostat during a hot day or whatever. Are you doing that same type of system, or do they sort of own their own thermostat and they get all the control over it?
We like Excel. That's a separate program. You can sign up for that air conditioning thermostat program or not. But this smart metering and the data that I'm talking about, every customer, whether you sign up for any programs or not, you get access to your data right now. So that's actually pretty cool. Yeah.
So how does United Power feel about consumer side battery storage so that they generate their own solar, store it to their own battery, do not push it back to the grid, and then use their own battery without ever putting that power onto the grid?
We don't have any obstacles for them to do that, but and maybe I'm in your good graces right now, but I might change that here in a minute, because I'll tell you what else we're doing that I believe is a utility pioneering thing. Since we have smart metering on every customer, we now have the ability to build a demand on every customer. We didn't have that before. We only had demand meters on commercial and industrial customers. We didn't have them in residential. So starting this year, we now have a demand component on every single customer out there. And this is a little bit of a negative to solar, because that, with a demand component, it takes a snapshot of your house every 15 minutes and says, okay, how much are you using energy now? And at the end of the month, it picks out the highest 15 minutes, which for a solar customer is going to happen probably at nighttime at some point. So they're going to set a demand, and they're going to pay for that. Now, what we did do, because we wanted to do a compromise, and believe me, I have been promoting this in front of COSIA and a bunch for years. I said we've got to get away from this death match where it's either the utility wins or the solar industry wins. We are actually better together. Renewables and the grid match up perfectly. When you're watching television, you don't know if your television is being supplied by the sun and your solar or whether it's by the grid. And it could actually change right in the middle of the program. No blinks, no switches, no nothing. It just happens. Being connected to the grid for renewables is part of the success story. Now, there's a lot to the success story, but that's part. The ease and convenience of connecting to the grid. Well, if we start approaching 100% renewables, I've got to get enough money to operate this grid that I'm going to argue is just as valuable to the solar guy. And if I'm not doing that, then every single solar system I put on is slowly putting me out of business. And that doesn't make sense to me. So we started with the demand rate. What we want to try to do, it was a light touch. We inserted the demand at $1 per kW. And we left the energy rate at about the 10 cent, which is what the value of the solar always was on the energy rate. It wasn't on the service. We didn't change the service charge, but we added this demand component at $1. So people get used to the demand component, because most residential customers have never seen this before. And we feel it's appropriate, it's a fairer rate for everybody, but that's part of what smart metering has allowed us to do, is all of a sudden we had a demand number on every customer we served. So did you have a follow-up?
The follow-up is because your earlier concern about the expansion of EVs and being able to, or needing to charge those when they get home that evening. If they've had their own solar working all day long, storing their own energy in their own battery, that can charge their EV without putting the demand that you're talking about on the grid back to your transmission, so that you're not getting that influx of.
What we're attempting to do is, with the demand, a lot of utilities don't have smart meters. They jack the service charge up. They go boom, boom, boom to collect more money out of everybody. But that little apartment guy with the one bedroom paying $40 in a service charge, and then the 10,000 square foot home guy paying $40 in a service charge. That doesn't, you can only take service charge so far. And so we felt inserting this demand component was a better way of gauging how you are using the grid. So if you're a battery plus a solar guy and you can manipulate it and to minimize that, then you are helping us. You are not impacting the grid very much. Go for it.
So you have net metering.
Yes, we do have net metering. But if you want to hit the grid, example, and you know, because I'm kind of going against what my argument about EVs was. Let's say you put, and a lot of people are today, they don't like the trickle charger. They want convenience. They want a level 2 charger in their garage. That might be an 8 kW load. Well, that's actually a fairly significant load. Another one is those instantaneous hot water tanks. Those can be like a 20, 25 kW load. Well, when those things come on, especially the hot water one, they may not use that much energy, but my God, they're hitting the system for 25 kW. And you know what? I got to have the right wire size. I got to have the right transformer size. I got to have a lot of equipment to serve a larger appliance like that. Energy-wise, not that big a deal. But from a capacity component, so even if you hit me with an electric vehicle charger at 2 o'clock in the morning with a level 2 8 kW charger, and that happens to be your peak demand for the house, yeah, I'm gonna bill you $8, $1 a kW for that demand. So it's what we feel is instead of chasing our tail all the time, we want to just neutralize our rates so that anything, a battery, a solar system, a fuel cell generator, a squirrel cage, whatever, we want to be completely neutral, that we collect the appropriate amount, that we can operate the grid that we think is of a value and it's a benefit to everybody, and we're completely neutralized. Connect whatever you want. That's what we're striving for. Do we have another question? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the analytics that goes into your decisioning as to when to fire up these batteries? Because clearly, in order to shave a peak, you have to know that peak is coming before it actually does.
So let me give you a summer example because it's easier and I think we can all understand it. So we have real-time data coming in system-wide. We know what our peak was. Let's say it's 450 megawatts up until that point. So we see the line coming up during the day on a hot day, and we go, boy, this is probably a day. But we really don't do anything. But as soon as it hits 451 and crosses that line, bam, the battery comes on. Now, why it's 4 hours? And you guys know this in Colorado. Let's say that's at 4 p.m. that it crosses the line, and I turn that battery on. Now all of a sudden a bunch of clouds come in. And really the peak hit at 4:30 and then it kind of trailed off because of the clouds. My peak hit at 4:30. Okay, cool. Battery was on. I captured it. Very next day, same hot day. It's creeping up. Bam, crosses the line. Battery goes on. No clouds roll over. That line keeps going up till 6:30. Then finally it CRES, it comes over. Well, if I have a 4-hour battery, it goes from 4 to 8, guess what? I captured that one too. I can't play the cloud game. I really can't. I mean, you really can't play the weather game. That is impossible. But we've got real-time data. As soon as it crosses the line, we trigger the battery, and we've done the study that under all circumstances, we feel that in a 4-hour block, we can capture all the anomalies that could happen and still capture the peak for that day. Now, so I set the peak. Now, a week goes by, nothing's going on, I'm not even using the battery. But that next week, hot again, boom. And so now we see that line going again. Well, if it crosses that line again, we hit it again. So we may have to do this 3, 4, 5 times in a month to actually capture, but we will capture it.
And then that 450 number, though, might be 420.
Well, if I've already set the 450 at some point, I'm going to pay 450. I can't reduce that. I just don't want it to go any higher than that.
Right, but I'm saying in different months it might be.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's always going to be, that's probably a summer month. Our winter months typically are like 300 kW, but it's exactly the same. You got a line in the sand. As soon as it crosses it, boom, the battery comes on.
But your wholesaler sets it on a month-to-month peak.
Right.
Okay.
So that's good news. So if I screw it up, I screw 1 month up. I get to start all over the next month. So in a worst case scenario, maybe I miss a couple months out of the 12 and I don't save $1 million bucks, but it's something a little bit less. But at least I'm not penalized forever or the rest of the year. It's for 1 month, and then we reset it and play the game again. So it's just a game that we're playing each and every month. So, yes?
Yeah, so this is very interesting, but I was wondering if maybe for some of the people who are in the audience who might not have as detailed of an understanding of the difference between capacity and energy, if you could explain how the grid works and what a demand charge is and why those exist. Because I'm sure a lot of people in the room know, but some people probably don't know.
Good point. And I'll try. Different people have different, but the way I do it, kilowatts is the power capacity. Kilowatt hours, how many hours did it use? That's the energy used. Let me give you an example. You got a 100-watt light bulb. If I turn that thing on, the capacity is 100 watts. It doesn't matter when I turn it on, it's going to use 100 watts. But how much energy does it use? If I turn it on and then turn it off again really quick and never use it again, I still had a capacity of 100 watts because it took 100 watts to light it up. But I didn't leave it on very long. So the energy that used, not that big a thing. In fact, it's almost zero. Let's call it 1 kilowatt. Well, no, it's less than 1 kilowatt hour, so it's pretty much zero. Now, if I take that same 100-watt light bulb, still the capacity is 100 watts. That didn't change. It's written right on the bulb. But I leave it on all 24 hours, every day of the year. Now, at the end of the month, that same light bulb has a capacity of 100 watts, but it's used a lot of energy because of the hour component. And so what we're talking about, and this is another hot topic. Let me just breach it. We got 6 minutes, so I got,
15.
oh, 15,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I hope this is interesting to you. I'm getting a little scattered here, but you know, I tell people this too. I said, if I put a solar system on every single house in my service territory, you know what I'm doing? I'm still coming back to you asking to build more power plants because my peak in the winter happens at 6 o'clock when the sun isn't even shining. So you can put all the solar you want out there, and I'm still building power plants to meet that 6 p.m. winter peak when the sun's not shining.
Or putting in batteries.
Or putting in batteries. But we talked with some people earlier. I don't know about you guys. Batteries are not the solution. They are a piece to the puzzle. But batteries die. Americans not going to put up with, hey, I got a battery and it lasted 4 hours and you can get your power back as soon as the sun comes up tomorrow. That's not going to last. I mean, batteries have their niche. There's something they do very well and there's some things they don't do very well. I guess the thing that makes me a little bit upset, well, I'm more of an engineer, pragmatic type of guy. When a politician says 100% renewable, my first thought in my head is, great, how do we do it? How can I do it? And I'm looking at the laws of physics and I'm going, we can't. I don't believe today we can get there. We can easily get to 30 or 40% renewables the way the grid works and different things like that. But to get to 80 or 100% renewables, there's like a missing technology here or something. There really is. And please blurt out if you got the answer, because batteries will not. Good example, Florida Light and Power just announced they're doing 400 megawatts of batteries. Xcel Energy was bragging that in the year 2022, they were going to have 265 megawatts of batteries. That's a lot. We got a 4 megawatt and we're bragging about it. Do you know what 265 megawatts on the Xcel system is? It's less than 5%. That's what's going to take you to 100% renewables? Is that? I don't think so. I really don't. I don't know how we get to some of these future numbers and 100% in different things, but I think there's a missing technology in there someplace that we need to discover personally.
Now, wind occurs at a different time than
True.
solar PV.
Right.
So they're complementary.
Complementary, but they're still both intermittent at some level, and so it's hard to plan for some of that stuff. The sun's easier to predict than the wind, except in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But, but yeah.
Well, why not mechanical kinds of storage, like, I guess, pump hydro and train cars full of rocks and elevators and things like that?
You know, those are all good. You know, but they have the problem with batteries, and I think some of your strategies, there's a beginning and there's an end. We were talking about natural gas peak shavers, and honestly, one of the benefits of that is if that window, that 4-hour window, let's say I screwed up 1 month and I actually needed 5 hours. Well, unfortunately, my battery's dead after the end of 4 hours. So I wouldn't have captured the peak that month. But if I had a natural gas generator, running it an extra hour, not that big a deal. So you need that flexibility in not just the capacity, but in the amount of time that you can operate the thing too. Is this the way I see the problem? Yeah.
Can you operate your batteries at less than full load?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you could bring on 2 megawatts
For 8
a
hours.
couple hours, and then if it's still continuing to rise, bring on the second 4 kilowatts.
But then I shoot myself in the foot if the clouds rolled over at 4:30 and I was sitting at a 2 megawatt, then I would have captured 2 megawatts that day instead of the 4. So, it's a bit of a game there. But I think there's something here that we need to capture somehow, some place. But yeah.
I think what you're saying is not that we can't do it without another technology, just that it's going to be more expensive. We can build lots of batteries, have lots of batteries lying around, not getting used very often. Just
Well,
as needed.
think of a house. So I put a typical house has a 6 kW demand, let's say. So I put an 8 kW solar system on the roof. But I still want to watch television at night, so I put a 6 kW battery on there. It's charged by the solar, great. But sometimes it snows and the panels get covered by snow and it's cloudy and it doesn't work. So now I got a 6 kW Black & Decker generator runs on gasoline out there that I don't use very much. But think about it. I have now bought with capital up front a 6 kW solar farm, a 6 kW battery, and a 6 kW generator to do everything that I would say the grid is doing for you right now. I don't see that as an efficient way of resourcing money or doing this. I mean, it accomplishes what you may want to accomplish, but are people really going to buy for their homes redundant systems, 3 levels?
Facility in California
Mm-hmm.
that uses PV and Voelker engines,
Okay. Yep.
and they run all the time.
And they're also counting on some diversity where this commercial customer's busy and this guy's not. So they're layering that. To me, that's a better way of doing it. So I'm a proponent of the
Those
grid.
engines are magic because they can go from 5% to 100% in 2 minutes.
Right. And that's what you need, especially with some of these intermittent sources like solar. I watch the numbers on the solar all the time. Clouds come over, that output goes in half, just like that. I mean, boom. And so being able to have fast reacting generators or some sort of backup. So there's an energy symposium next week that they're going to have downtown, and I'm on a panel on that too. But one of the topics is the grid obsolete? And I don't believe it is. I think you got to pay for it, but I still think it's the best resource that we have to hit some of these renewable marks is to continue to support the grid. Not just support it, but improve it. That's an important thing. But all of that takes money, and we need to find a way to balance all of that stuff. But I am a big proponent of the grid. But I know others think that that whole business model is trash, and that we'll all have our little nuclear power plant box that we could put in the backyard, or cold fusion, or something. And you know, we all laugh. Well, we laughed about a lot of stuff that we're using in our pockets right now too. So, yeah.
Do you see long-term things like more long-distance transmission? You know, if it's sunnier in California, so you can get your load from there, and then when it's windy here and there's no sun in California, you can transfer it. Sort of the more long-distance stuff as being a solution, or is that too much loss in transmission?
Well, to me, it's, again, assets. If I'm claiming that most of this stuff is happening at the distribution level, at the loads itself, that's good. So what's our transmission system going to do in the future? Just balance things out between sunny parts of the country and cloudy parts of the country? Well, it can do that. You know, it's a lot of money to do that. I don't know. There's a balance here that needs to be struck, and perhaps there's someone or more in this room that will help strike that. But that's what makes this industry so fascinating right now, is that the business models are all changing.
The answer is all of the above.
A little bit, I think it is. But we need to know how to balance that stuff out. I think the transmission for reliability on a big footprint is very valuable. But that's very expensive to have out there for just occasional use. I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. But if I got one, I wanted to show you one 2-minute video. And the reason I wanted to show this is, it's just me yapping again. You've heard that. But this is the actual site. These are the actual batteries. Each one of these modules is about a 50 kW module, and we've got 80 of them, and you'll see that. But I just wanted to make a point that each module, it's kind of like a big refrigerator, is about 50 kW. So I think the utility business model is changing, and that's why we continue to listen to our members. We hear a lot of talk that they would like to see more renewables. Some say 100% renewables. And we felt that battery storage was just the next logical step in what I would call the renewable revolution. What I'm standing in front of today is currently the largest battery in the state of Colorado. It's a Tesla lithium-ion battery. This is the same battery that you would find in your car. It's just that we've got a whole bunch more of these here at this site. This is a 4 megawatt battery, which will last up to 4 hours. When the utility is having a peak demand condition, the power that we have to supply during those periods is very expensive to us. And so if we can discharge this battery during those peak energy hours, it actually saves us a lot of money. And we estimate that this battery here will save our membership about $1 million a year.
What is great about this project is it checks all the boxes. It adds flexibility, closer to the customer, cleaner, cheaper future. This is a milestone project. We congratulate United Power in the decision to invest in batteries.
1, 2, 3, I've been a member here of United Power for about 16 years now, and I have to say that really this is the proudest moment that I've ever had of being a member of United Power with our ribbon cutting. So, thank you.
We are progressive when we look at renewables. We feel that this is part of what I'll call the utility of the future. And a lot of this is driven by what we as a utility want to do, but it's partially because we're listening to our members. That's who we're listening to determine what to do next. It may be a small step today, but it's the future step for bringing on more renewables onto the grid. So we put the heavy metal guitar work in there. I don't know how much time we got. If you want to entertain any question, energy, obviously I got an opinion. You might have an opinion. Does anybody have any questions? I appreciate your attention. I hope you got something out of this today. you know, battery prices just continue to come down. These things are going to be built. They're going to be used. How we define them, how we use them is going to change over the years. And to me, this is the next one thing I do say back in the solar days, when solar was first starting, utilities said this. They said it's too expensive, nobody will do it except rich guys and greenies. And we were dead wrong. And so United Power didn't want to be caught behind the 8 ball once again. We believe batteries are the next wave. We missed the solar wave, but we didn't want to miss the battery wave. So we don't know where they're going, but we wanted to keep our hands in the mix, get them dirty, so that we could actually get some experience with these things and make some decisions. Perhaps we make a business case of selling these to residential people. I don't know. But we want to keep our options open for the battery because we totally blew the solar stuff.
You talked about the impact of clouds. I have a picture that is my output from my solar panels at my home on the day of the eclipse.
Oh,
it's fascinating.
Yeah. No, we have some on our solar farms too. That was, it had a bigger effect than I thought it would. It took it down. It really was something. So, but that's again part of the whole situation that we're kind of talking about here is how do we provide some of that power, so.
You can predict those with pretty good accuracy.
Yeah, that one I might have even been able to figure out, but it does happen. You're right. So, anything from anybody? I do appreciate you coming out, and thank you very much.